The market doesn't know what keeps you up at night. It doesn't know when you want to retire, and it doesn't know how old you are. The simple truth is, the market doesn't care. But if you care, you've tuned into the right place. You're listening to Investor Resources, bringing clarity to the confusing world of finance. Here are your hosts of Investor Resources, Don Creech and Perry Sykes.
I'm Don Creech.
And I'm Perry Sykes, and welcome to the Investor Resources Podcast.
Well, Mr. Market finally got its day with the SEC, and all those who believe in Bitcoin as the new currency of exchange for whatever you want to buy and wherever you want to go can now do so in an exchange-traded product. Typically, they're referred to as exchange-traded funds, but I think officially this one was approved by the SEC as an exchange-traded product, because it doesn't have the same functional ability to evaluate it that an ETF does, which owns stocks or bonds or gold that are things that are real.
Real investments, yeah. There you go.
So Bitcoin has been a speculation. It's also been the focus of a great deal of fraud and consumer abuse, investor abuse. It's also one of the ways that illegal transactions are regularly conducted.
Lots of them.
But a lot of investors want to be involved because it's considered to be a digital currency. The only, Perry, you and I were talking about this last week, and that there are places that claim they will accept Bitcoin for a purchase, like PayPal. You said PayPal does, and I know that. I have a PayPal account, but nobody wants to do that.
Correct. It's always very hard to get anybody to part with their Bitcoin. There are real estate purchases you can make in Florida. You can go buy a condo with Bitcoin, no problem. They'll be happy to take it. Porsche accepts Bitcoin. You want to go buy a new Porsche? Yep, we'll take Bitcoin, no problem. No one's doing it. No one wants to do that. And part of the problem is there are plenty of stories by early Bitcoin proponents who are saying, yeah, I bought my first McMansion with my Bitcoin, and I spent $2 million, and that Bitcoin today is worth, would have been worth at the peak, $97 million. So that's the most expensive McMansion ever purchased because I lost so much money by spending that Bitcoin. So that just highlights how speculative Bitcoin is. It is so speculative that people that have it don't even want to use it as a currency, which is what the proponents say it actually is. It's too volatile. They're too afraid it's going to have a huge run up. Of course, now the biggest problem was the big drawdown that it had over the past few years, and they're hoping that the number of ETF offerings is going to help. That's 10 funds opened up that they're selling. 11. Okay. Spot ETF, spot Bitcoin, and we'll see. We'll see if people actually begin to accumulate that on a more significant basis or not.
Well, my argument has been, if I wanted to take Bitcoin in exchange for something that I was selling, what's my confidence that I'm not buying it, taking the Bitcoin just in advance of what recently happened was a massive sell-off in it. I really can't, unless I have a ready market to immediately exchange it for something else that I know has a specified value. I'm just simply trading an asset that I know has function for something that I have no idea what the real value is going to be tomorrow.
Correct. So in essence, all you did was add a huge amount of risk to your transaction. There were a number of NFL football players a couple of years ago that required half of their contract to be paid in Bitcoin. So we're talking tens of millions of dollars in Bitcoin, and then it just tanked. And you've got to think they were looking at that and thinking to themselves, not sure that was a good idea. And then all you can do is wait. You can't, there's nowhere to go to get a refund or a do-over. You're in, you own it, and you take the loss. So you greatly increase your risk in any transaction.
Well, and the fraud that went on with FTX just complicated
Yeah,
the reputation of the whole concept.
sure.
And who actually has authority to go in and look at the books and see whether or not these places are operating on an up and up basis? Now, with the SEC making these approvals, they are going to be very, very careful in their audits of anybody who is sponsoring a Bitcoin product. And broker dealers are being very cautious. Some broker dealers
Indeed.
are telling their advisors, we're not going to do that at all. Vanguard's one of those. They've said just no participation in our, if you want Bitcoin, you don't come here to Vanguard. Uh, One, they may not be able to figure out how to operate it as one of the lesser expensive offerings. Probably trying to just verify what's in there is going to be more expensive.
Right.
Some of the broker dealers are saying we're going to allow you to do this as long as it's no more than 3, 5, or maybe 10% of a client's account, depending upon their net worth. And they are going to require massive written disclosures, signed disclosures about the fact that you think you know what you're doing. We don't necessarily think that's the case, but we don't want to lose your business. So you sign here that you'll never sue us when you lose money on this deal,
And
or
that,
something
and
to
that's
that effect.
that's the key. It is so speculative that the companies that are going to allow it to be sold under their roof are going to have disclosures that say, if you lose all of your money, it's not our fault. We told you on the way in. This is probably not a good idea, which is why Vanguard, who wants low cost investment options, and they also want more conservative investment options that aren't just pure speculation. And that is their opinion of Bitcoin, that it is just pure unbridled speculation, and so they're just not going to offer it at all. They said that they don't offer inverse funds or leverage funds, and Bitcoin is in the same boat. Way too much risk for individual investors. Even if you think you understand what's going on, you don't understand how quickly this can vaporize, because if you look under the hood, you find out there's really nothing there. Like you said, Don, there's no real investment there. It's just a belief system, and people still don't use it for currency. After FTX and a huge international fraud scheme gets exposed, and Bitcoin is out there saying, well, we're going to be the new gold. We're going to be the new store of wealth, for the uber wealthy. And it's like, doesn't look like it. Nobody has a problem with fraud with gold. If you're holding gold, you're holding gold. There's no holding Bitcoin. You can say you've got them, but the intrinsic value is always zero. And so it's a much more difficult product to price, and it's a much more difficult product to frame, especially if you're looking at a client base or a customer base. If you're a broker dealer allowing it to be sold, to make sure people understand there's nothing holding this up, literally nothing, and that's not like anything else you can buy from a broker dealer.
Well, there's a 58-year-old MIT educated executive. He's chairman of MicroStrategy. That's Michael Saylor.
Yep,
He's been buying Bitcoin since 2020, and he's a real advocate. And it's basically said that when he speaks and explains it, you think that this is the next great panacea for the future. But he speaks in whole paragraphs, not just sentences, but whole paragraphs. And my argument is that's kind of like having to read a prospectus
correct.
that it's 180 pages long, and it's supposed to be, and it's summarized in 2 bullet point pages on the front 2 pages.
Right.
And with that you say, yeah, okay, that's good enough for me. Well, if it takes 180 pages to explain the offering, probably shouldn't be here. There's
Yeah.
too many things that can go wrong, and that's kind of where Bitcoin is. It's in that gray world of think I got it. Well, I guess I
Correct.
don't. Now I'll come back and
And
I'll try that again. Jamie Dimon runs the most successful investment bank in the world. And his
correct.
opinion is, when he was asked about cryptocurrency, he said, if I was a government, I'd shut it down. And I heard him on Fox Business on Maria Bartiromo's program in the morning last week. He hasn't changed his mind.
No.
He's, he said, we are not doing that. And if they change their mind, it's going to be for some very high net worth investors, or find some way that JP Morgan is going to make some money on the deal, which
Right.
may
He's not
be.
been a fan. And like you said, he has not changed his mind. He does not want that business in JP Morgan. Just like over at Vanguard, they see it ending badly. So this is going to end badly. There's not going to be a good outcome here, and we don't want to be in that mess. In the meantime, you've got the FOMO people out there watching their neighbor getting rich because they bought Bitcoin, and people are clamoring for it. And even at that, they're saying no, we're not going to get into it. So they perceive a large amount of risk, and the whole idea that anything that's that speculative is not going to end well. It's you're gonna have something blow up in someone's face, even if it's not everyone. There's going to be a
Well,
huge
just like FTX.
exactly, just like FTX, where everyone involved is going to be hurt, and there's no retrieving those funds. You can say, well, let's go after FTX. It's like, okay, fine, they're broke compared to where they used to be, so the money's gone. They spent it or gave it away, and there's no retrieving those funds, and they don't want to be a part of that. So it's so important to remember, everyone out there, if you're going to look at Bitcoin, make sure you truly believe whatever money you're putting in there could absolutely just vaporize, and it's just going to be gone.
So, sideline on FTX, part of the prosecution of, what's his name? The initials, the guy. Anyway,
Bankman
uh,
Fried, yeah.
Bateman Fried, the SBF. The part of the claims against him in the court were for uh, improper political donations,
Correct. Lots of
failure
them.
to disclose properly. Well, it just so happens that I think there's 9 charges that are related to political donation disclosure. They've all
Yep.
been dropped.
Amazing, huh? Amazing.
Congress
Yeah.
Congress could get together and pass a joint resolution or pass a bill that removed that problem so they don't have to refund the money that they received, which
That's
would
the
be
key.
that's it. Politicians are going to get to keep their money. And if you were involved in FTX, it's just too bad for you that you aren't a politician who can vote on the issue.
But the politicians are in the, but what if we already spent it mode? Where are we supposed to get the money? We already spent it. What are we supposed to do now? It's like, yeah, well, you should have taken a look beforehand, just like Vanguard is telling everyone, take a look, take a look before you go there, and before you let that money come into your portfolio, because there can be repercussions. And unless you're very closely politically tied, you may be left with your laundry hanging out to dry. So be careful.
Well, I think that's Vanguard's position, is basically
Yeah.
self-defense. Why do we want to do this and end up with massive litigation? And the headline, the press is going to be bad, plus it's going to
Yep.
cost them millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. You've got legal defense, and if they lose, then well, then they've got all sorts of other people jumping on the bandwagon. It becomes a big legal mess, and it's just easier to avoid it. In fact, they know they're going to lose some business. Some people who want
Sure.
to buy Bitcoin in their retirement account and find out they can't get it at Vanguard are going to say, "I'm gone. You won't give me what I
Yep.
want. I'm out of here." And Vanguard's just going to say, "That's the way we play the game. Very conservative." And we don't want to end up in court with our name on the front page of all sorts of national papers.
Right. And that
Uh,
likelihood is just way too high. So
yeah,
we're
it
not going to
is.
do it. Yeah, we're not going to do it.
So one of the other things that hasn't worked out quite the way people thought was finance in Europe. The
Ah,
U.S. banking system, despite the increasing regulations which have been put upon and are proposed to make the banks more solvent, it's also reducing their ability to be active in the loan market. But European banks are in worse shape. The market over there is much more difficult. So we as Americans, with a less socialist form of an economy. I didn't
that's it.
say, yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to say more capitalistic, but I think it's really
Right.
less socialistic in the way
Well,
we are structuring things and imposing regulations everywhere that the government can.
Correct.
We're still the global leader.
We're not quite as bad, yeah, as the European
Yeah,
regulation
yeah.
yet. Yeah.
So it's an area to watch. European is part of the developed market investment arena, the EFA, Europe, Asia, and the Far East, the major companies. But
Yep.
for the most part, they're still lagging the United States. And if the dollar continues to strengthen, it's going to complicate the problem of owning foreign investments. Now, those things
A
cycle.
lot. Yep.
And right now, with the Fed saying they will cut rates, it's just a matter of when. If they cut rates, the dollar falls, and that is an opportunity for both developed and emerging markets to catch our attention as we move through the year.
And we're
So I
fine
think
with
that's
that.
good.
We'd be happy to get back into emerging markets or European markets when they are strong enough to warrant that investment. We watch them all the time. Just now is not the time.
Well, the emerging markets have an awful lot of US dollar denominated debt, and a
Yep.
rising dollar makes it very expensive for
Really
them
hurt.
to pay interest, make their interest and loan payments.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
that increases the risk of being over there for the time being.
Yep.
Anyway, I think that's it for a wrap today,
Wrap
Perry.
that up. You betcha.
If you want more information on what we do in managing money, contact us. The information is coming up on the screen. Subscribe to our podcast. Have a happy and prosperous new year.